And hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Pumpkin Copter Cast, the only video game show. So today I'm joined by Ashlynn Barker, chief everything doer of the webcomic Fake Gamer Girl, and she's going to say some word talks about that and her love of video games.
Yeah, my name's Ashlynn. I use she, her, or they, them pronouns. I'm a trans woman, and I make comics and music and video games, all sorts of stuff.
All right, so let's just pretend this is like a professional talk show instead of aggressively amateur. And why don't you tell all the folks at home like a bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so let's see. I've been out as trans for a while, going on like 7 or 8 years, longer than it feels like. And I live in Chicago, and I did a DIY kind of folk punk music under Ashby in the Oceans for a while. Some people may know that if you're trans and you were on Tumblr in 2015, it had some mild popularity. But then since 2018, I've been doing web comics under Fake Gamer Girl, and it's a lot of variety of like autobiographical stuff, video game related stuff, kind of nerd pop culture, and transgender stuff. I feel like, yeah, I always describe it as like transgender and video games and maybe some depression and mental health talk, but it's pretty much whatever it is the day I guess I'm making it. So yeah, not too much else than that. I do, like I said, a variety of things under that umbrella: music and video games and comics.
Okay. And brief tangent before we get to the rest of the questions. Now,
Mhm.
I'm not really sure like how I discovered well, I was just I want to say like a year before or the year of I came out myself. I was just looking up just LGBT plus themed artworks on Tumblr because it's either
Mhm.
one of two things. One, it's either, just so heartwarming, it reaffirms your love of life, or it's hilarious. Sometimes both. And and the first of your comics that I found was you given a bit of trivia of professional best girl and voice actress of like a whole lot of characters, Maddie Blaustein from the Pokemon anime.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's one of my. I think that was like maybe like the fifth comic I ever made. Probably still like one of the more popular ones, just because it's like a little infographic about her. Yeah, she voiced Meowth in the Pokemon anime, and she also voiced Grandpa Yugi in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime.
What?
Yeah, yeah, pretty wild. So the voice of Meowth and the voice of Grandpa Yugi are the same, or her. So that's pretty cool.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
I
Grandpa.
think that's true. You're gonna fact check me.
Well,
I
it's
think
just
it.
if that's true, it'll just blow my gosh darn mind.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm right. I had to double check as well.
Oh my goodness! She was already like the coolest part of most of my childhood.
I know, it's really crazy. I feel like that about a lot of like transgender stuff is like even if you weren't aware of it growing up, it's still like trans
Yeah.
women and trans people just like permeate all of culture. Like, like Wendy Carlos made all this synth music from like The Shining and stuff that we watched as kids. And
Mm-hmm.
so even though like we weren't aware of maybe like trans people existing, at least I wasn't. I'm from a farm in Kentucky. It's kind of cool that I feel like trans people still like touched a lot of aspects of my life. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool.
I was first introduced to, just not just the word transgender, but also like the concept around when Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door came out and
Hmm.
found out a bit of trivia of, best purple girl Vivian.
Oh yeah, yeah. Vivian's a great trans girl.
She can punch you on fire.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Did
Oh,
yeah. Did
sorry.
did you did no? You're good. Did you play the new Paper Mario?
Oh, yes, yes, I did. It's my game of the year of
Oh
this year.
yeah. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, I think I fell off about halfway through, but I liked it as well. I really like the art style.
With Mario and, his, you know, I feel like I'm not entirely alone in this. His, like, definitely lesbian surrogate daughter, Olivia.
Oh yeah, yeah. She's definitely a cute character. I like all of the designs and the way the
Yes.
water looks in the new Paper Mario
Yeah.
is like mind blowing to me. Anyway, sorry for all the tangents.
It is like 80% of this show.
Nice.
Anyway, so what was your favorite game and or games growing up?
Yeah, so I think my favorite game, probably right off the bat, is I'm a 90s kid. So like my first game that I had on my own was Pokemon Yellow version. I was also a Sega Genesis kid, so Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is still like one of my favorite games of all time. There's a lot like Golden Axe for the Sega Genesis as well.
Hmm.
So definitely like was a Sega kid, so I was kind of a latecomer to like Nintendo stuff. But whenever Zelda Ocarina of Time came out, like that to me, I don't know. I saw friends play it, I saw like neighbors play it, and I never got to play it for like 3 years probably. By the time I actually sat down and like owned a copy of it, I feel like it was like life changing. I don't know. That game for me is like the most formative video game. But yeah, that's like my favorite growing up. And then in high school, college, I really liked Shadow of the Colossus. I
Hmm.
played it like way after its release. I'm also a big fan of like JRPGs and stuff. Yeah, a lot of Nintendo stuff, JRPGs. Yeah, not too much else. I kind of stick with Nintendo for sure.
All right. And if wasn't this wasn't, the apocalypse times, and if things were, slightly less like on fire than they are currently, and we were like at, some sort of convention, like a gaming convention, an artist convention, or something similar to that, and like you had a booth and someone was walking by, what would be the rundown of what fake gamer girl is that you would give that person?
Yeah, I think it's such a good question. Hopefully it's like just cute characters at this point. I think all of my characters are like kind of trans and androgynous,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a sort of like abstract feeling to my art, I think, that a lot of people maybe can like relate to it, even if it's like I'm drawing a trans woman. I try to keep everything a little ambiguous intentionally, just so like I don't know. Sometimes like people will like misgender one of my cartoon characters or my comic characters, and it's always kind of weird just because I intentionally make everyone a little androgynous if I can. And yeah, so on top of that, I think a lot of sci-fi stuff. Like I've done Blue and Grawl, and I don't know. My comics are so random, but I guess like I think hopefully it's like maybe the pastel colors as well. I
Mm-hmm.
apologize if it's a little tangential, but um yeah, at this point my work is so random. I think my colors definitely, the art style for sure, and then the content, yeah, I just try to keep it friendly and positive and queer without it being, like I try not to do like any like 101 stuff or like what does trans mean or I don't really want to explain my transness to anybody at this point. I just want to make comics where it takes it for granted or it assumes that the reader is going to be able to understand it. Yeah, definitely is my goal.
Okay. And when did you make like the very, very, super, very first fake gamer girl comic?
Yeah, so January 2018. So it's been what? Yeah, going on 2.5 years, a little bit over now. So yeah, I started in 2018 as kind of like a New Year's resolution. So I didn't really know what would happen, but then it got more popular than my music, so I kind of stopped playing music to work on art. So that's how it happened.
Okay. And like what is your process from like when it's an idea in your brain to, finished and posted on the internet? Like, how do you decide like what to make into a comic strip?
Yeah. It's obviously different for everyone. At this point, without it sounding like an advertisement, like I use an iPad and an Apple Pencil, which is like very convenient for just doodling. And a lot of times I'll just like doodle stuff. Most of the time the doodles don't end up as anything, but rarely anymore do I really sit down to write something for like a daily web comic. Those are just kind of doodles, and then I might think of the text later. Or I mean, gosh, like half of my comics I think at this point are advertisements for my Patreon, which is kind of funny because I do so much like work just trying to make a living off of art.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely like I sketch on my iPad. I do everything digitally, so I sketch on my iPad. And usually a finished piece takes about 30 minutes if it's black and white, or an hour if it's colors. Colors definitely take a little bit longer. But yeah, I keep it pretty loose. I don't edit a whole lot, and I'm not too much of a perfectionist when it comes to art that I post. I just try to keep it pretty loose and just show people my progress without being too precious about anything.
Okay. And what is like so far? What has been your most favorite and your least favorite fake gamer girl comic that you have made?
I think my favorite stuff I've done recently this week, I posted a series I want to start called Interstellar Door. It's like going to be like an anthology series that's so if you read my comic, it's a bunch of random stories and panels. Someone asked recently if my comics made any sense or if like there was comics I just don't post because it is kind of abstract, I guess. But yeah, Interstellar Door is this anthology series that's going to be a little bit longer form, like 5-page stories, as opposed to like one 4-panel story per comic. So I just did one on Bunt Girl that I really liked, or sorry, Blunt Girl. So kind of some weed related comics.
Mm-hmm.
So I just did that. That's one I'm really proud of. I also have a comic available on Fake Gamer Girl Comics, bigcartel.com,
Mm-hmm.
called Kid Canary. That's kind of like a choose your own adventure comic with dice. So that was really cool. It's like my first printed comic. So that was a huge accomplishment. As far as least favorite, I think anything from the first year I did comics is pretty cringy to me, just the art style. But I try to not be too hard on myself because I definitely have been like learning how to draw in front of a bunch of people online. So I try to be nice to myself, but I definitely have some pretty shitty art out there.
Okay. And just as someone whose job is not even remotely slightly like, just, drawing or making any
hmm
sort of like web content the way you do, like what are like some challenges you found that come with, just making a web comic?
Yeah, I think writing and communicating ideas is obviously a big one. And I think it just takes a lot of practice. Also, just being comfortable making mistakes in front of people is a big thing. Um, I don't know. I think more people maybe struggle than I do because pretty early on, I was like, I'm just going to make mistakes in front of people and be okay with it. So I think that's like my biggest challenge is probably just like letting go and not being the best all the time and more just if you read my comic, I try to just make stuff regularly even if I have writer's block or anything. So that's definitely the biggest challenge is just my I try to maintain a level of productivity regardless of like my inspiration, just so I can, I don't know, I treat it like a little bit like a job, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that answered your question, sorry.
That's fine. And just since I first discovered your works just by Googling Pokemon stuff, my question is, which Pokemon is your personal favorite?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's so many. I don't know any Pokemon names like past like Generation 3 because I nickname all the Pokemon. But off the top of my head, I really like Piplup. I have a Piplup like plush that's like pretty big, like a I don't. So I've had that Piplup plushie for like ever, and Piplup's definitely my favorite. Even though I don't think I've ever played like chose her as a starter in the game. Like I don't even think I played that generation. It might be the one I skipped, but I really like Piplup. And other than that, Salazzle from Sun and Moon I think is like the coolest fire poison type. Like
Oh, everyone knows Salazzle.
yeah, sexy salamander Pokemon. But she's super cool.
With a male harem.
I know. Her design is so cool. And like she gives me like trans vibes in a good in a good way.
Yeah. My favorite's Sheninja.
Oh yeah, that's a cool one. I definitely refer to Pokemon a lot as far as designs go. Whenever I'm like making it, I made Bunt Girl recently, and all the enemies I was there's some really good design philosophy from Pokemon of just like designing things to have an emotion. Like even if that emotion is like Sheninja looks cool, it's like everything about Sheninja is going to be cool, you know? Or like there's sad Pokemon, and you can look at it. Like you can look at a Trubbish or whatever, and you're like, that's a sad Pokemon. I love like just some of the design philosophy around Pokemon is very great to latch on to.
Yep. And
no worries.
Now we move on to the final question on this list. So, Ashlynn, in your opinion, is video games?
Okay, so I had these questions ahead of time, and still don't know what that question means.
Literally, no one does.
How have people answered it in the past, or how would you answer it? Have you answered it on your podcast?
I'd probably need to go back and to some of the earlier episodes, but yeah, I purposefully leave it obscure because some people just take it like literally as yes or no, or some people just go on like a long tangent as to the merits of video games as an art and storytelling form, and it's all different.
Yeah. So today, how are you feeling about that question? Like, what are you thinking about with that question? I'll definitely answer as well. I just wondering.
Oh gosh, the tables have turned.
Yeah.
I would definitely say video games is, as someone who's been gaming since, I don't know, whenever when the very first Paper Mario came out, so around that time, in the ancient forgotten year of 2001.
Right.
So I would say yes.
Okay, so my answer will be also yes, and I guess as far as like being a content creator, and now I've made 2 video games. I made Rebel Kitsune, which is a text adventure, and I made Bunt Girl, which is kind of a breakout clone. You can play both of them on itch.io, FGG Comic, itch.io. So I guess like the only thing of like insight that I think is cool is that the validation I get from people playing my video game, like knowing people have beat in like my game or proud of a high score, is probably more validating than anything else I've done. Like people liking my music or my comics, because I don't know about you, but like I get a lot of validation of just having like control over a story, and with video games you literally get you're making something that interacts with people and you're not even there. It's like DMing, but you don't even have to be in the same room. So there's like a magical quality to it, to me, of like video games as far as communicating ideas and also just challenging people. The fact that like I can design something and someone else will be challenged by it or like puzzled by it is really, really cool. So I think video games definitely are.
All right, then.
Yeah.
And, that brings us to the conclusion of this particular episode of the Pumpkin Copter Cast. I would like to thank Ashlynn for joining me and entertain and just humoring me on this what I can generously be described as a video game interview show.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to people hearing this, and hopefully, yeah, people enjoyed or found any of my like rambles insightful or anything. But yeah, cool. I hope you have a good rest of the night.
And if any of the -7 people listening to this have enjoyed what they heard, you can do the regular stuff like rate, comment, subscribe. Yeah, Ashlynn, is there anything you want to plug before we sign off?
Yeah. At this point, the easiest thing to do is go to Linktree /Ashlynn Barker. So Linktree, it's like linktr.ee /Ashlynn Barker. That'll take you to all my projects. At this point, it's pretty hard for me to advertise for everything. But what I will say is I'm working on a concept album about the anime Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm almost done with it. I'm going to release it when I hit 400 patrons on Patreon, which I actually think happened today. So that's cool. But I'll have some Yu-Gi-Oh! Music soon, which is random, but super excited about that.
Okay. And after you give her some money by going to her Patreon, and if you have any left over and you want to give me some money, you can go to patreon.com/the Pumpkin Copter Cast, and for as little as $1 a month, you can submit questions that I can use in future interviews. And yeah, and this has been the Pumpkin Copter Cast, and as friend of the show, Ashley Jenkins has, pretty much just compelled me to say at the end of every show, have a gourd day, everyone.
Yeah, have a good night, everyone. A good day, or a gourd day. Because of pumpkins, I get it. And that's the part you end on.